Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has resigned. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about, it's a little bit hyperbolic. She obviously wasn't kicked out of Make America Great Again because it's a political movement that Marjorie Taylor Greene helped build. But President Trump, the MAGA or Make America Again movement, is not just any congresswoman or congressman in particular. It is about bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America. It's about addressing outsourcing that caused poverty within cities of this country. It's about all the things that media and Democrats and people who despise Trump don't understand. It's not just one political viewpoint associated with a particular very passionate congressperson. It's about enforcing immigration laws. It's about limiting endless wars. These are all things that encompass Make America Great Again, or President Trump's two administrations. He saved this country from endless wars and from, all he's trying to protect us, the country, from an inflow importing the narcotics. I'm trying to be algorithmically friendly. To my super chat, thank you, Paul Bartlett. There are narcotics coming from various countries that are ending the lives of tens of thousands of Americans every year. He's trying to stop that. He's trying to do 20 to 30 things at once, from tariffs meant to leverage, to utilize economic leverage to implement national security, protect national security issues like rare earths, metals, all of these things important for electric car vehicles and batteries and cell phones. So China doesn't have a monopoly on those things. So these are a lot of issues that aren't addressed in the media. Anyway, let's get to Congresswoman Greene. Hit subscribe to this channel. I respect her. She's a fighter. I love that. And she has been misquoted, never ever stated space lasers, never ever stated any of the things that they accused her of stating, or most of the things they accused her of stating. But a public dispute with Trump over the EP files, when Jeffrey Epps got immunity deals, this is a PBS, immunity deals from almost certainly lifelong Democrats who happened to be prosecutors, who happened to be in charge of South Florida 10 years ago. In Manhattan, they lowered his status. That's not Trump. Trump didn't run Manhattan. Democrats did. Okay, then you have $80,000 to the Democratic National Committee. Then, of course, the Open Secrets article, $139,000 to Democrats, only 18 to Republicans. He was a Democratic donor who got immunity deals. According to PBS and according to CNN, his status was lowered. Why? Because he gave money to Democrats for protection. So a cataclysmic standoff with Trump did nobody any good. But let's check this out. Hit subscribe to my super chat. Thank you. To Paul Bartlett, thank you.
Taylor Greene's resignation announcement late last night sending shockwaves across the Republican base after tensions between the Congresswoman and President Trump soared in recent weeks on affordability, and then he withdrew his endorsement of her in the upcoming midterms. Madison Scarpino is live in our Atlanta bureau with the latest. Hi, Madison.
Hi, Mike. Well, since the beginning, Greene has been one of the most outspoken supporters of President Trump. But her recent criticism of him on things like the Epstein files and healthcare led to him calling her a traitor and wacky. So she's now saying that she does not want to put her congressional district through a hateful and hurtful primary.
I've always been despised in Washington, D.C. and just never fit in.
Greene posting a 10-minute video last night slamming what she calls the political industrial complex. And she goes on to say no matter which party is in power, quote, nothing gets better for the common American man or woman. She also criticizes the recent government shutdown, the cost of living, foreign aid, and more. Greene.
But see, again, things got objectively better with Trump. That's why he won in a landslide. We had 4 years of Biden. We had 4 years of President Trump. He barely lost, and then we had 4 years of Biden. It was a catastrophe. then we went back to President Trump because people's lives were better. That's why he won in a landslide.
He then talks about her long-standing dedication to the president and how her loyalty should be a, quote, two-way street.
My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it makes to the American people and put America first. With that has brought years of nonstop, never-ending personal attacks, death threats, lawfare, ridiculous slander and lies about me that most people could never withstand even for a single day.
President Trump responding to all of this.
And she's right. She's right about that. But that's coming from an entrenched political machine that has morphed into media as well. American media, by and large, is like an echo chamber for the Democratic Party. And so if President Trump is giving you pretty much what you want, even if most of the things, it's not perfect from Thomas Massie or Marjorie Taylor Greene's perspective or Rand Paul's perspective. It's not perfect at all, but it's infinitely better than Democrats. He's giving voters pretty much what they wanted. Now, when I was on the left many years back and I supported Bernie Sanders, which is embarrassing both for me and anyone who still supports Bernie Sanders, Democrats would not have given anything. Like, there was nothing that they were going to get, but they said fall in line anyway. You're going to get a lot. That world, the Democratic establishment doesn't give its voters, its left-leaning voters, anything. Nothing. Crumbs, like nothing. They cheat their candidates, and you saw what happened to Biden. You saw what happened to Bernie Sanders. And his policies wouldn't work anyway. That's why they don't even work in Vermont. Like, there's no single payer in Vermont. But the issue is that unlike Democrats who demand everyone fall in line and give nothing to the far left, President Trump is giving like most of what staunch conservatives wanted on most topics, most issues. So it made no sense to create this standoff. But anyway, let's continue.
Today, saying in part, quote, Marjorie Trader Brown, because of plummeting poll numbers and not wanting to face a primary challenger with a strong Trump endorsement, where she would have no chance of winning, has decided to call it quits. And the president goes on to thank Greene for her service to the country. And now Greene's resignation, Mike, will soon make the Republican House majority even slimmer. That number will bring it down to a number of just 218 members. Back to you.
Madison Scarpino, live in Atlanta. Madison, many thanks. For more, let's bring in New York Republican Congresswoman and House Ways and Means Committee member Nicole Maliotakis. Congresswoman, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So first to the big Oval Office meeting yesterday. You heard the president just moments ago reiterate that it was a very good meeting. What's your reaction to that? And are you surprised he connected with the socialist New York City mayor-elect?
Yeah, I mean, they seemed a little too chummy, in my opinion, but I guess it was a good meeting and they were able to find some common ground. The problem is, these people who are self-proclaimed socialists, they are wolves in sheep's clothing. And so I'm not very optimistic, although I am hopeful that they'll be able to find some common ground for the betterment of New York. We need to make sure that New York continues to get its fair share of funding when it comes for transportation, infrastructure, and our hospital system, as well as public safety and counterterrorism. But in no way can the federal government be supportive of a socialist and communist agenda. We have a mayor who says he wants to purchase private property and turn it into communes, purchase supermarkets and have them government run. He wants to seize the means of production. And so there's a real contrast there. And also, I don't know that their views of how you get to the affordability issue are really in line. Obviously, one wants to implement socialist policies and price controls that we know that don't work. And President Trump is doing it the right way by expanding innovation, the free market, and competitiveness.
So it's very interesting. The thing is, does Marjorie Taylor Greene's been there for 5 years. Coming January, it'll be there 5 years, okay? She probably knew this was, the last year that she wanted to be in Congress and have to deal with media and Democrats and everybody, going after her. The issue is that are the causes that she cared about? Are they furthered by a standoff with Trump? Yes or no? Did she help her constituents with that standoff against President Trump, when the issue is that Trump didn't see? Again, it's a Democratic Party issue. Jeffrey Epps was given immunity deals long before Trump. Trump never got immunity deals. They went after him. See, the Democrats are very good at lawfare. And when they wanted to protect a donor, that's what they did. That's why the Manhattan DA's office lowered the offender status, because he gave almost certainly because he gave $80,000 to the Democratic National Committee, to Chuck Schumer, to Hillary Clinton. He gave $22,000 to Chuck Schumer, $20,000 to Hillary Clinton. Okay, he gave to John Kerry. He gave $139,000 to Democrats. I don't really understand exactly why there was that standoff. It made no sense, since it was a Democratic Party scandal, and I'm sure Congresswoman Green knows that any files or data or information or documents implicating directly either Democrats or Republican, but he was a Democratic congressman donor. Jeffrey Epps, the monster, was a Democratic donor. He wasn't a Republican donor. He wanted protection from primarily Democrats in New York and South Florida. That's why he gave the money almost certainly. Why would he give money to Democrats primarily? Why? Because he cares about the environment? He was committing crimes, and he got immunity deals, and he got a lowered status, and he was able to get away with a lot, almost certainly because he gave all that money. So I just don't understand what the standoff was with Trump. So, okay, Trump's releasing the files. Now you have Larry Summers and Hakeem Jeffries and others on the defensive, because it all points to Democrats. But I just don't get the standoff. But anyway, let's continue. Any of the files that implicated anyone in particular are gone. They don't exist. That's one of the reasons Trump was like, yeah, the whole thing's a hoax. Not that the files or the victims or the criminality or how evil Jeffrey Epps was. He was very evil and criminal and diabolical, but he was smart when it came to bribing politicians. That's why he was able to get away with his crimes for so long. And so the belief that if Trump just releases all of the files, then we'll have everybody, all the powerful people implicated will be in those documents. That is almost, it's like, there's like almost a 0% chance of that. If there was anything on Trump, they would have gone after Trump and leaked it 10 years ago to the New York Times or Washington Post. Any actual evidence of criminality was almost certainly scrubbed or deleted or corrupted a long time ago within any document. But let's continue.
And they have a lot coming up. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is going to join us now. Majority Leader Scalise, it has been a while since President Trump dished out one of his signature nicknames. One of your members, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just got two. Marjorie Trader Greene and Marjorie Taylor Brown, because the president says green grass turns brown when it begins to rot. What's going on with these two?
Well, you can see that they've had some disagreements, and, President Trump from time to time has disagreements with people, and he's not shy to talk about it. And you've seen over time he's made up with some people too. But, one of the things President Trump does is, he tells people what he really thinks, but he also talks about what it's going to take to get this country back on track. And President Trump has done phenomenal things to address the problems that he inherited when Joe Biden was president. We saw so many problems around the world. We had high inflation, high interest rates, high energy costs here at home. And President Trump started day one to fix those problems. And he's not going to slow down. And I know he has disagreements, even with some of his friends along the way, but he's not going to be deterred. He is working tirelessly. You see him in the White House. He'll come from a trip overseas. I saw him the day after he came from the Middle East, signing historic peace agreements in the Middle East, and the next day he's at the White House, continuing to do great things here at home. So this is a president that doesn't rest, doesn't stop fighting for the American people.
And the president has told us that he's mad. Marjorie Taylor Greene voted with Democrats to try to force a vote about releasing more Epstein files. Why do you think it is that your Democratic colleagues were so quiet about Jeffrey Epstein for the entire length of the Biden presidency?
Well, it's a point of hypocrisy that we've brought up many times, Peter. We actually brought a motion for unanimous consent the other day to bring up all the Epstein files. And guess who objected on the House floor? It was Democrats. And so, this idea that the Democrats won it, they hid the Epstein files for 4 years. In fact, some of the things you saw leaked just the other day were things that we House Republicans got out through Jamie Comer's Oversight Committee. We had the estate of Epstein finally subpoenaed, and we released a lot of that data. One of the things it showed, Peter, was a Democrat member of Congress texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing, trying to get Epstein's advice for how to ask questions during a hearing. I don't hear the mainstream media talking about that. That just came out like 2 days ago, and it's because of Republican oversight on those Epstein files that the Democrats sat on for 4 years.
A different subject, but
they sat on it and hid those files because he was a donor. Primarily, this is like the most simple concept to understand, and media has a way of this sleight of hand. It's like smoke and mirrors. It's like an illusion or a magic trick. They're able to completely focus on Trump when it's a Democrat. It's entirely virtually almost entirely a Democratic issue. Okay, he was a Democratic donor who gave a lot of money, $139,000, $80,000. That's how he got his status lowered. They went backward. They went overboard trying to get immunity deals 10 years ago. And South Florida was run 10 years ago exclusively by Democrats. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense how, like, she was a fighter. She was fantastic. She went on The View. She should have gone on The View like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and, confronted the lies that all of these people were telling about her. But she went on The View and CNN as she was leaving, and it's like, see, that should have happened. That should have happened in real time the past 4 years. And maybe, she was on CNN a bunch of times, I think. But anyway, let's continue.
It's something that everybody watching wants. That would be free money. The White House says $2,000 checks could be on the way. The money would come from tariffs and not the budget. They just need one thing first.
Well, it's something that will require legislation. But if you look at how much tariff revenue has been coming in, then there would actually be enough room to cover those checks and not go into the rest of the budget. So yeah, there would be enough money to pay for the $2,000 checks.
So before the $2,000 checks, they just need your permission in Congress. Are we going to see a vote for these checks?
Well, there's a robust debate over what's going to happen with the tariff revenue. One of the things, Peter, is getting an actual quantification of it, exactly how much money has come in from tariffs. A lot of us don't think it's going to be long term because you see President Trump reaching new trade agreements so that we have low.
Could you imagine if every American gets $2,000 and Democrats say no to the tariff money for every American? No. I mean, it's like zero continuity with any alleged, like, they're all about, there's, the values, the political philosophy it's not, there's no continuity to it. And like, they're just vote against Trump at all times, no matter what.
Lower tariffs or ultimately zero tariffs is the goal because you got a fair trade with countries that never used to treat us fairly. So many countries took advantage of us. President Trump finally has those countries treating us fairly. So one point of a lot of discussion was to use that tariff revenue to reduce the deficit. And I think everybody would agree reducing the deficit lowers interest rates. It lowers inflation, taking all of that money that Washington borrows off the table and no longer borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars in this case would actually be good for the entire economy and put more money in the pockets of families who are struggling in terms of lower inflation and lower interest rates for people that want to go buy a home, buy a new home, first-time home buyers. All of those things are things that we have been actively debating in Congress.
And there is another idea to try to put money back in people's pockets. Some of your members are kicking around legislation that would do what we just talked to Dr. Oz about. It would stop sending money to insurance companies. It would start sending money to patients, to people to spend how they wish. How quickly might we see that?
Yeah, real soon. And look, Dr. Oz touched on a lot of important things that we're working with the Trump administration on. And, you know, if you go back to, and Dr. Oz alluded to this, when we were moving the working families tax cut through Congress, we put a provision in that bill called cost sharing reductions, which is, I'll translate it in English. It was scored to lower premiums for families, healthcare premiums by double digits, over 12% lower premiums in healthcare. It passed the House. It was in the bill, passed the House, and it was Senate Democrats who fought to get that removed because Senate Democrats do not want premiums to go down. They want to force everybody into Obamacare. What was called, by the way, in law, the Affordable Care Act. Does anybody really think it's affordable? I mean, my gosh, it's been 80% higher premiums on families since they passed that law known as Obamacare. And then they try to mask it with hundreds of billions of dollars in bailouts, not to families, but to insurance companies that are seeing record profits. We should not be continuing to bail out insurance companies and Obamacare. We should give families better options to lower care by things like cost share reductions, association health plans, which would work really well to have small businesses and their employees get more options to lower premiums. Health savings accounts, Peter, are highly effective at lowering costs in health care. PBM reform, we passed that through the House and it died in the Senate under Chuck Schumer. All of those are ideas that are on the table and more that we're bringing back, and we're discussing those. We discussed them during the shutdown. We're going to be bringing more legislation in the weeks ahead, all of them proven to lower premiums and give families more options to control their health care.
So these are all things the Democrats, oh, he has no plan for health care. It's like, well, Dr. Oz and you have Steve Scalise, they're all talking about President Trump's plans for lowering healthcare costs, which are going through the roof, in part potentially because of the ACA, which was called the Affordable Care Act. Okay, so it was supposed to lower costs. But anyway, that's a whole other story. The issue is that President Trump has to deal with a lot of topics. You know, Congresswoman Green was great, fantastic, a fighter, but it's like when you focus like a laser on 1, 2, 3, 4 topics, and Trump is president of the United States of America, two-time president. They tried to take his life, raided Mar-a-Lago, accused of being a Russian operative, all of these absurd. He went after all of American media, and now they're paying defamation suits. Trump has single-handedly, this is, you couldn't even write a story about a man like Trump who took on the entire world and won. And God bless him. And God bless that firefighter who's protected his family on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania last year. And then on the anniversary, James Comey, the Honorable James Comey, finds seashells with 8647. Okay, this is completely absurd. Almost certainly there were no seashells just miraculously appearing with people who spent 10 hours with that very vile message approaching the year anniversary of Butler, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, President Trump has adversaries that have no shame, but they have gone after him from day one. And so then you have Congresswoman Green who experienced the same types of things. It's like, what good does it do? I get it. I would love to see all the files. Everyone would. They don't exist. The ones that incriminate people for criminal acts don't exist. Okay, because Jeffrey Epps gave enough money to Democrats to lower his status, to get immunity deals, and Lord knows what else. If they destroyed evidence the way Clinton's team destroyed laptops and cell phones and all of that during the Clinton email probe, there's nothing left. Clinton as Secretary of State deleted half of her emails, 30,000 plus emails. Her first 3 months of emails are missing. You think that Jeffrey Epps' files are there? Democrats can get away. They have acted with impunity. And so I just don't get the issue with, I get it, but if she was leaving, why leave in this manner? I don't understand it, but anyway.
not to force them into Obamacare at higher costs.
And Leader Scalise, really quick before you go, I have to ask about this. You're such a big LSU Tigers fan. They fired the football coach, Brian Kelly. The governor is so mad at LSU's athletic director, who's now gone, for giving Kelly a $54 million golden parachute that he gave this update about the next coach.
I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach.
So who should Donald Trump select as the new LSU football coach?
Look, I was at the game yesterday. By the way, we beat the Arkansas Razorbacks. It was a great competitive game. I'm floating Nick Saban out there. He coached LSU, won us a national title. He and especially Miss Terry really love Baton Rouge. Don't discount that option. You can say Scalise told it to you first.
All right, Saban.
You might have heard something on this live stream that's actually groundbreaking. It might be more important than what we're talking about right now, but let's continue. Nick Saban at LSU. Wow.
Saban to the Tigers. Heard it here. That's a big headline. Thank you.
Great being with you, Peter.
All right.
Hey, it's
So this is Congresswoman Green on the floor of the House talking about potential cover-up. Check this out.
The gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I proudly rise today in a bipartisan effort to release the Epstein files finally, after 5 administrations have covered it up. Earlier today, I attended the press conference where the survivors, they're not victims, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse and sex trafficking told their stories. And they told stories about how it started back in 1991.
And again, CNN, Manhattan DA's office asked judge to lower Jeffrey Epps' offender status in 2011. This was a Democratic Party donor scandal. He was a donor, he gave money, and he was able to get favors almost certainly because of that money. I think that Congresswoman Green was courageous, and she's right. She's right to want to release all those files, but the files, like she stated, this has been 5 administrations. It's been 25 plus years or 25 years or so. Those files are corrupted, deleted. Anyone who committed criminal acts almost certainly has been scrubbed out of them. And if they had anything on Trump, they would have leaked it in the second he wanted to run in 2015. But let's continue.
1996, and they continued on through the decades. And they told stories about how they told someone and tried to get help. They told the FBI and they weren't listened to. And they told law enforcement and no one did anything. And these women don't just number a few. These women number around 1,000 women. And they are victims of something that's unthinkable. And this should have never, ever happened. This was the biggest fight I think I've seen in Washington, D.C. This is my 5th year here. And this was a fight that we should have never had to wage. It should have been the easiest thing for every single member of Congress. It should have been the easiest thing for the Speaker of the House. It should have been the easiest thing for the President of the United States to release all the information, every single file, on behalf of these American women.
I agree 100% with Congresswoman Green. The issue, however, also is that there were innocent people implicated, or not implicated, there were innocent people within those emails or documents. Now, you have Larry Summers resigning. Okay. But there could be people who were just mentioned in passing within emails. There could have been people on that plane. There could have been celebrities on that plane. There could have been. So those emails are going to come out. Those emails are going to come out, and you might have lawsuit after lawsuit. You know what? She's 100% right. What I'm trying to get at is that President Trump probably had other reasons for initially stating, yeah, maybe now's not the best time. I'm working on tariffs. I'm trying to make peace with Russia and make peace in the Middle East and all that stuff. So he's a million things going on. He shouldn't have made it an issue in the campaign, which, by the way, Democrats say, oh, he was obsessed over it. No, it was like not one of the most important. He wasn't focused on that, although that's one of the things he talked about. Okay, it didn't encompass the entire campaign in 24. Most of the time in 24, he was defending himself from lawfare and absurd charges that will be overturned by the Supreme Court. But the point is, she's 100% right. But knowing very well it was a cover-up, knowing very well also he was a Democratic donor who got immunity deals 10 years ago. His arrest, this is an NPR article, his arrest followed a series of stories in the Miami Herald that detailed how prosecutors in South Florida had engineered controversial deal to grant him immunity when he faced similar charges a decade earlier. The immunity deal was kept secret from his alleged victims, a violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Why was he given immunity deals by prosecutors in South Florida? Why was he given why would the Manhattan DA's office ask the judge to lower his offender status? Could it possibly be that, he is a huge donor, $80,000 to the Democratic National Committee? They would make that, everybody in media would make that correlation. Everybody at MSNBC and CNN, the Washington Post and New York Times would make that correlation. Oh, you have a Republican donor who in Republican districts of the country who got immunity deals, lowered, all of these great, prosecutors that were helping him out or whatever, allegedly asking to lower status. Well, why did he get all of those? Why was he helped by the political systems, the political system that went after Trump vehemently without immunity deals? So they went after Trump in New York City, but they protected Jeffrey Epps in New York City. Well, why the discrepancy between the two? Trump was never accused of the heinous crimes that Jeffrey Epps was committing. Could it be that it's because he was a Democratic donor? That's the thing. It's like, the country's better off with Marjorie Taylor Greene in Congress. And she probably was like, 5 years and then I'm out because of all this, chaos and mayhem. And God bless her. She deserves to be with her family and happy. But why go out in this manner? Why go out in this manner? Knowing very well that, those files could have all been released without the public feud. Or, man, you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there needed to be a public feud between. Maybe she helped propel all those files being released. Maybe I'm 100% wrong. I don't know. But let's continue.
These American women aren't rich, powerful elites. They do not have someone paying for their airline tickets or paying for their trips or paying for their expenses every time they try to do something to get this information out. These are your average Americans. And you want to know what the Epstein files represent? The cover-up represents to average Americans. It represents the failures of the federal government and Congress to the American people. And that is what people rose up about in 2024. They wanted and demanded transparency from their government and for Americans finally to be put first. And today, with this vote, we are finally putting these victims and these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and the cabal of rich, powerful elites that expands not just here in the United States of America, but to other countries as well. We're putting them last. And that is exactly what Americans want. You see, for far too long, Americans have been put last. And they're sick of it. They're sick and tired of it. And this is why they don't trust Congress. This is why they don't trust the government. And here's the problem. All of these women who have suffered in shame for years and years and years, women who were terrified, women who were intimidated, women who were threatened, just like Virginia Giuffre. And now she's dead. And these women should have never faced that, for this information to come out. And we, especially the 4 Republican members of the House of Representatives, we should have never faced intimidation and threats for us to get this vote to come to the floor. Never forget, there were 4: Thomas Massey, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. We had to sign a discharge petition, and we had to fight through intimidation, and we had to endure it for months.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she had to create the standoff with President Trump to get this done. If that's the case, then God bless her. You know, maybe I'm wrong. I really don't. I don't know anymore. I'm like everyone watching. I understand President Trump's point of view, and I understand her point of view. And the thing is, there was a miscalculation when President Trump came into the Oval Office. He has so many things to do. The last thing he has to deal with is potential lawsuits against the government because people are named in emails. Okay, or President Trump knowing very well that the files were corrupted, deleted, and any incriminating evidence is no longer there. That being said, she's right in having, again, President Trump did that on purpose to get all the Democrats to say, release the files, and then they have to then backtrack because Hakeem Jeffries, Congresswoman Plaskett, Larry Summers, and then that's only the first 3. So there might be a whole bunch of Democrats associated with those emails or implicated next month when they release like the entire batch of emails. But let's continue.
To push that discharge petition finally to 218 to get this vote to come out. This is what the American people are sick of, and rightfully so. Now, where does this go from here? The question will remain, will the Department of Justice release all the information? Will a judge in New York release the information? Will the CIA release the information? And will foreign governments release their information? Or will this continue after this vote today be a cover-up? A cover-up of the rich, powerful elites that bond together in sex and human trafficking abuse and all types of global business that enriches them but never serves Americans. The American people will know, and the victims, actually the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, will know because they know the list of names. And I remain dedicated to my promise to read those names here on the House floor if those women ever find them in a place that it needs to be done. I yield back to Mr. Massey.
Well, God bless Marjorie Taylor Greene. Very courageous woman. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe that rift needed to happen for the files to actually be released. And so that was courageous of Congresswoman Greene. This is a Democratic Party scandal. He was given immunity deals in places of the country run by Democrats, and he was given preferential treatment. The Manhattan DA's office asked the judge to lower the offender status. The Manhattan DA's office went after Trump with a vengeance. So $80,000 to the Democratic National Committee, $139,000 to his open secrets to Democrats. Then you have $22,000 to Schumer. And every they have one photo of Trump, and it's like, what is he hiding? Like, well, what? So wait, saying the political party that takes all the money has nothing to hide? Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel. Thank you so very, very much. God bless you all. I'll be back tomorrow. Congresswoman Greene, a lot more courageous, has a lot more courage than AOC or anyone within the modern day Democratic Party. You heard what she said, the last couple sentences in her speech in Congress. I don't hear AOC or anyone else within the Democratic Party stating those exact words. The issue was almost entirely a Democratic Party scandal that Democrats, as always, tried to pin on Trump, because for the past 10 years, it's always been uranium one. Oh, Trump's a Russian operative. Donations from Jeffrey Epps. Oh, what does Trump have to hide? It's like, it's just every single, Hunter's laptop, Biden's laptop. Oh, it's Russian disinformation. The Steele dossier. We have to publish it. And so they have nothing on Trump. Everything points back to them, but somehow, with media's help and late night, they make it all about Trump. That's why I was wondering, was there any other way, aside from a public standoff with Trump, that Marjorie Taylor Greene could have handled this issue? But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it had to. Maybe Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene had to have that public standoff for all this to take place. President Trump only has until November of 2026. Democrats will probably take back the House. If Republicans get those extra seats, they won't with the Supreme Court rulings. But all the things that he has to do without obstruction by House Democrats, he needs to do within the next year. Actually, he has pretty much a full year to do. Anyway, hit subscribe. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.